The homework assignment. It was a sunny morning at Lincoln Elementary School, and Jamal was filled with excitement. He had been looking forward to this day all week. Today, he would turn in his homework, a story about his family's history. Jamal loved to write, and this assignment was special. It was a chance to share his culture and pride with his classmates. Jamal sat at his kitchen table, scribbling down the final sentences of his story. He had poured his heart into every word. He wrote about his great-grandfather, who had come to America from a distant country, full of dreams and hope. He described how his family worked hard to build a better life, overcoming many obstacles along the way. Jamal imagined his classmates reading his story, feeling proud of who he was and where he came from. When Jamal finished, he smiled. He felt accomplished. His mother peeked over his shoulder and read a few lines. "This is wonderful, Jamal. You should be proud of it," she said, beaming with pride. Her words filled him with even more confidence. With his story printed neatly and tucked into his backpack, Jamal headed to school. The sun shone brightly as he walked, and he felt like he was walking on clouds. Today was going to be a good day. When he arrived at school, he greeted his friends, and they exchanged stories about their homework. Jamal listened as they talked about their family stories too, feeling a sense of connection and belonging. Finally, it was time for the teacher to collect the homework. Miss Thompson, their teacher, was known for being strict. She had a no-nonsense attitude, but Jamal hoped she would appreciate his effort. He watched as his classmates handed in their assignments, a mix of excitement and nervousness bubbling inside him. When it was Jamal's turn, he took a deep breath and approached Ms. Thompson's desk. He handed her the neatly folded paper. "I worked really hard on this," he said, trying to sound confident. Ms. Thompson glanced at him, her expression unreadable. She took the paper without a word and placed it on her desk. Jamal returned to his seat, his heart racing. He couldn't wait to hear her feedback. As the class continued, Jamal focused on the lesson, but his mind kept drifting back to his story. He envisioned Miss Thompson smiling and nodding as she read about his family. However, when it was time for her to return the assignments, Jamal's excitement quickly turned to dread. Ms. Thompson stood in front of the class, a stack of papers in her hand. "I will now return your homework," she said, her voice cold. "Some of you did well, but others, well, let's just say there's room for improvement." One by one, she handed back the papers. Jamal felt his heart pound louder with each paper she returned. When she finally reached his desk, she placed his paper in front of him with a heavy thud. Jamal picked it up, his heart racing with anticipation. He scanned the page, and his smile instantly vanished. Miss Thompson had written a big red F at the top. Below it, she had scrawled, "This story is unrealistic and childish. You need to do better." Jamal's eyes widened in disbelief. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The words felt like a punch to his stomach. Jamal looked around the classroom, feeling embarrassed. Some of his classmates were snickering, while others looked away. He wanted to crawl under his desk and hide. The proud feelings he had about his story faded away, replaced by shame and confusion. How could she say this about his family's history? Feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes, Jamal quickly wiped his face with his sleeve. He was angry. He had worked so hard on this assignment, and now Miss Thompson made him feel like he was worthless. He remembered his mother's encouraging words and tried to hold on to them, but it was hard. At recess, Jamal sat alone on a bench, staring at the ground. His friends played nearby, but he didn't feel like joining them. He kept thinking about Miss Thompson's harsh words. Did she even know what it felt like to be proud of where you come from? Did she understand how important family history was? His friend Malik noticed Jamal sitting by himself. He walked over and sat beside him. "Hey man, what's wrong?" Malik asked, concern in his voice. Jamal took a deep breath. "I got an F on my homework," he said quietly. "Miss Thompson said my story was childish." Malik frowned. "That's not fair. Your story is cool. You should be proud of your family. Jamal sighed, feeling a bit better just talking about it. I thought so too. But it doesn't matter now. It does matter, Malik insisted. You should show her how great your story is. Maybe you can talk to her. Jamal considered this. Could he really confront Miss Thompson? It felt daunting, but he didn't want to let her words crush his spirit. He wanted to stand up for himself and his family. Maybe you're right, he said slowly. Maybe I should talk to her. As the recess bell rang, Jamal felt a small spark of hope ignite within him. He would find a way to show Miss Thompson that his story mattered. With Malik's support, he began to think about how he could share his family's journey and make her understand. With determination in his heart, Jamal stood up and joined his friends. He decided that he would not let one cruel remark define him. He would turn this moment into a chance to speak up and stand tall, no matter what it took. The impact of words. Jamal returned home that afternoon, still feeling the weight of Miss Thompson's harsh words. He walked slowly, his head down and his backpack feeling heavier than usual. The bright sunshine outside did little to lift his spirits. He knew he had to tell his dad about the F he received, but he dreaded the conversation. How would he explain that he felt crushed by a teacher who didn't understand him? When Jamal walked through the front door, the aroma of his mother's cooking filled the air. It was his favorite, chicken and rice, with a side of steamed vegetables. His mom was humming a cheerful tune in the kitchen, and the sound made Jamal feel a little better. Hey Jamal, how was school today? His mother called out, wiping her hands on a towel. Jamal paused, taking a deep breath. It was okay, he replied, trying to sound casual. But the tremor in his voice gave away his true feelings. His mother looked at him closely. Just okay. You can tell me if something's bothering you. Jamal hesitated. He didn't want to ruin the happy atmosphere in the house, but he also knew he couldn't hide his feelings. He needed to share what had happened. I got an F on my homework, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother's smile faded, replaced by concern. An F. What happened, sweetheart? Jamal slumped into a chair at the kitchen table. I wrote about our family's history, but Miss Thompson said my story was unrealistic and childish. She said I needed to do better. His voice broke, and he looked down at the table, ashamed. His mother sat down beside him and took his hand. Jamal, I'm so sorry. That must have hurt a lot. She paused for a moment, choosing her words carefully. But remember, not everyone understands the value of our stories. What you wrote is important, and you should be proud of it. I thought she would like it, Jamal said, frustration bubbling up inside him. I put so much work into it. You did, and that matters, his mother replied gently. Your story is a part of who you are. It reflects your family's journey and struggles. That's something to be proud of, no matter what anyone else thinks. Jamal felt a flicker of hope. His mother always knew how to make him feel better. Still, doubts lingered in his mind. What if Miss Thompson never changes her mind? What if she always thinks my work is childish? Then it's your job to show her how wrong she is, his mother said, her eyes shining with encouragement. You can speak up, Jamal. Share your story with your classmates. Help them understand why it's important. That night, as Jamal lay in bed, he thought about his mother's words. Could he really stand up to Miss Thompson? He thought of the stories his family had told him, the struggles and triumphs that shaped their lives. Those stories deserved to be heard, not dismissed. The next day at school, Jamal felt a mix of determination and fear. He arrived early and took a seat in the classroom, his heart racing as he waited for Miss Thompson to arrive. He glanced around and saw some of his classmates chatting, but he felt alone in his thoughts. When Miss Thompson walked in, her usual stern expression greeted the class. Jamal felt his stomach tighten. He remembered the sting of her words and wondered how he could confront her without feeling intimidated. But he had to try. After the morning announcements, Miss Thompson began discussing the day's lesson. Jamal listened closely, but his mind kept drifting back to his story. He wanted to show her the real Jamal, the one filled with pride and hope. He wanted her to understand that his culture mattered. When Miss Thompson asked the class to take out their homework, Jamal knew this was his moment. He raised his hand, his voice trembling but determined. "Miss Thompson, can I talk to you about my homework?" She looked surprised but nodded. "What is it, Jamal?" "I want to share why my story is important to me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "It's about my family and what we went through to get here. I worked really hard on it, and I think it deserves more than an F." The classroom fell silent, and all eyes were on him. Jamal felt his heart race, but he pressed on. "My great-grandfather came to this country with nothing. He faced a lot of challenges, but he never gave up. I want people to know that our stories matter." Miss Thompson raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback. For a moment, it seemed like she might dismiss him again, but something in Jamal's voice made her pause. "I see that you're passionate about this," she said slowly. "But the assignment was about writing in a certain style. It's important to follow the guidelines." "I understand," Jamal replied, his voice stronger now. "But I think it's just as important to express who we are. Our stories shape us. I want to show my classmates where I come from." Miss Thompson looked around the room, noticing the expressions on her students' faces. Some looked inspired, while others seemed to understand Jamal's point. For the first time, she seemed to realize that her words had an impact. "Okay, Jamal," she said finally, her tone softer. "I'll tell you what. How about you share your story with the class? Let's see what your classmates think." Jamal's heart soared. "Really? You mean it?" "Yes, I mean it," Ms. Thompson replied. "You can present your story tomorrow, and we'll discuss it as a class. Let's see how everyone feels." As the bell rang and the class began to chatter, Jamal felt a rush of excitement. He had taken the first step toward standing up for himself. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to share his family's journey and show that their stories mattered. When he got home that day, Jamal couldn't wait to tell his mother the news. As he shared his triumph, he felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He realized that standing up for himself and his story was the beginning of something powerful. The presentation day. The morning sun spilled into Jamal's room, casting warm rays across his bed. Today was the day he would share his story. He could hardly contain his excitement, but a tinge of nervousness also crept in. What if his classmates didn't understand? What if Ms. Thompson still didn't like it? He took a deep breath, reminding himself that he had already taken the brave step of speaking up. As he got ready, Jamal thought about his family's history. He remembered the stories his grandfather shared about their ancestors. Those tales were filled with struggles and victories, and they inspired him to write his homework. He wanted his classmates to feel the same pride he felt. After breakfast, Jamal grabbed his notes and headed to school, his heart pounding in rhythm with his steps. When he arrived, Jamal could see other students gathered in groups, chatting and laughing. As he walked into the classroom, he noticed Miss Thompson setting up a projector. This made him even more anxious. He hoped she wouldn't make it too formal. He wanted to speak from his heart. "Good morning, class," Miss Thompson said, her voice cheerful. "Today we have a special presentation from Jamal. He's going to share his homework with us. I hope you're all ready to listen." Jamal's heart raced as he stood up. The eyes of his classmates were on him. He felt a mix of fear and excitement. Taking a deep breath, he stepped up to the front of the room. "Hi, everyone. My name is Jamal," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "Today, I want to share a story that is very important to me. It's about my family and where we come from." As he spoke, Jamal looked around the room. Some students seemed curious, while others were skeptical. He opened his notes and started to read about his great-grandfather's journey to America. He told them how his great-grandfather had left everything behind to seek a better life. He spoke about the hardships they faced as immigrants, the sacrifices they made, and the dreams they held on to. I want you to understand that my family story is not just about struggle, Jamal continued, gaining confidence. It's also about hope, strength, and resilience. My great-grandfather believed in the American dream. He taught my family to never give up, no matter how hard life gets. As he shared these personal stories, Jamal felt a sense of empowerment. He could see some classmates nodding in agreement. A few even leaned forward, eager to hear more. Then he showed a picture of his great-grandfather, a proud man standing with his family. This is my family. We are proud of our roots, and we want everyone to know that our stories matter. As he wrapped up, Jamal felt a rush of adrenaline. Thank you for listening. I hope you all can see that every story is important, and we should celebrate our differences. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, Miss Thompson broke the silence with a warm smile. Thank you, Jamal. That was a powerful presentation. You showed great courage today. Jamal felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had done it. He had stood up for his family's story, and now he felt proud. Miss Thompson turned to the class. Let's talk about what we just heard. What did you all think? A girl named Mia raised her hand. I think it's really cool how this family came to America. It's inspiring. Another student, Alex, nodded in agreement. Yeah, it made me think about my own family and where we come from. Everyone has a story. Jamal felt his heart swell with pride as his classmates began to share their thoughts. One by one, they opened up about their own family histories. Jamal realized that this wasn't just about him. It was about everyone learning to appreciate each other's stories. Ms. Thompson encouraged the discussion. This is exactly what we need. Understanding and respect for each other's backgrounds. Thank you, Jamal, for sparking this conversation. As the class continued, Jamal felt lighter. He had transformed his nervous energy into something powerful, creating a space where everyone felt heard. The students shared stories of their own families, and Jamal learned about their unique backgrounds. He saw how they connected over shared experiences and celebrated their differences. By the end of the class, Jamal felt a sense of community that hadn't existed before. His classmates had bonded over their stories, and they all left with a deeper understanding of one another. As he walked out of the classroom, Jamal smiled to himself. He had faced his fears and emerged victorious. When he got home that day, Jamal couldn't wait to tell his mom everything that had happened. He rushed through the front door, where she was waiting with a warm smile. How did it go? She asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. It went amazing, Mom. I shared our family story, and everyone really liked it. Miss Thompson even praised me, Jamal exclaimed, unable to contain his excitement. His mother wrapped her arms around him, pulling him close. I'm so proud of you, Jamal. You stood up for yourself and your family. That takes courage. As they sat down for dinner that evening, Jamal felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that sharing his story was just the beginning. He wanted to continue advocating for understanding and respect for everyone's experiences. He was determined to make sure that no one else felt dismissed or belittled because of their background. That night, as he lay in bed, Jamal reflected on his journey. He knew that his story mattered, and he had the power to inspire others. He closed his eyes, feeling grateful for his family, his culture, and the new friendships he had formed. The future looked bright, and he was ready for whatever came next. The teacher's reaction. The sun rose bright and warm over the school the next day, but Jamal felt a chill in the air as he walked through the hallways. His heart raced as he recalled yesterday's presentation. He had shared his family's story, and it had been well received. However, he was still anxious about how Miss Thompson would react to the comments made by some students during the discussion. As he approached the classroom, he noticed Miss Thompson standing at the door, speaking with a few of his classmates. She looked serious, her brow furrowed. Jamal's stomach knotted. What could they be discussing? He hesitated for a moment before stepping inside. When he entered, Miss Thompson turned her gaze toward him. Good morning, Jamal. Can I speak with you for a moment? Jamal nodded, his heart pounding. He followed her to the side of the room, away from the other students. "I wanted to talk about your presentation yesterday," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Yes, Miss Thompson," Jamal replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I was really impressed with your courage and how you shared your story," she began. "But I also want to discuss something else. I overheard some comments made during the discussion that were concerning." Jamal's heart sank. He could guess what she meant. He had heard a few snickers and whispers when he mentioned his family's background. "Do you mean the jokes?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Miss Thompson replied. "It's important for us to respect each other, and I want to make sure we create an environment where everyone feels safe and valued." Jamal felt a wave of relief wash over him. "I just wanted everyone to understand my family's story," he said. "I didn't think it would be taken as a joke." "I understand," she said, her expression softening. "But some students might not realize how serious this is. It's our responsibility to educate one another and be aware of our words." Jamal nodded. He appreciated her concern. "I didn't mean to make anyone uncomfortable." "I know you didn't, and I want to support you in sharing your story further," Miss Thompson said. "How about we turn this into a class project? We can focus on cultural stories and backgrounds. This way, everyone can learn from each other and appreciate our differences." Jamal's eyes lit up. "That sounds great. I'd love to help with that." "Fantastic." Ms. Thompson smiled. "Let's plan to present this idea to the class later today. I think it will encourage everyone to share and understand more about one another." As she walked back to her desk, Jamal felt a new sense of purpose. He knew he could help change how his classmates viewed stories and backgrounds. The idea of working on a project about cultural understanding excited him. After morning lessons, Ms. Thompson gathered the class together. "Class, I want to thank Jamal for his brave presentation yesterday. It sparked some important conversations. Today, we're going to discuss how we can learn more about each other's cultures." Jamal stood up, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. "I think it's a great idea. We can all share our family stories and backgrounds. It can help us understand each other better." The students looked intrigued. A boy named Ethan raised his hand. "What kind of stories do we share?" "Anything about your family, where they come from, and the things that are important to you," Jamal explained. "We can make presentations, maybe even a display for the school." Another girl, Lisa, chimed in. "I can share about my grandparents who came from Italy. They had to start over too." "I'd like to talk about my family from Mexico," added a student named Sophia. "There are so many traditions we celebrate." Jamal felt a rush of excitement as his classmates began sharing their ideas. He could see the enthusiasm growing in the room, and it warmed his heart. They were all starting to connect over their different backgrounds. After the discussion, Ms. Thompson divided the class into small groups, encouraging them to brainstorm their family stories and decide how they wanted to present them. Jamal felt proud to lead his group, guiding his classmates as they explored their histories. As they worked together, Jamal listened to their stories with care. Each one was unique and filled with lessons about resilience, love, and cultural pride. He felt inspired by their willingness to open up and share, and it deepened his understanding of his classmates. By the end of the session, they had compiled a list of topics for each presentation. Jamal looked around the room, feeling a sense of belonging. They were no longer just classmates. They were a community sharing their histories. As they prepared to leave, Miss Thompson called out, "Remember, we'll have a showcase next week for everyone's presentations. Let's show the school the beauty of our diverse stories." Jamal couldn't wait for the showcase. He felt empowered by the idea that their stories could help create a more inclusive environment. He knew they could make a difference by simply sharing who they were. After school, as Jamal walked home, he felt lighter than ever. He had faced his fears and taken steps to foster understanding among his classmates. The journey had just begun, but he felt hopeful. His story was just one of many, and together they could create a brighter future filled with respect and kindness. That night, Jamal shared his excitement with his mom. "Mom, we're doing a project about family stories in class, and I'm leading it." "Wow, that's amazing, Jamal," she replied, her eyes shining with pride. "I'm so proud of you for turning your experience into something positive. This is just the beginning." As Jamal went to bed, he felt inspired. He knew that by sharing stories, they could change perspectives and build a community rooted in respect and love. He smiled to himself, dreaming of the day they would showcase their hard work, knowing that every voice mattered. The showcase day. The day of the showcase arrived, and excitement filled the air at the school. Students decorated the hallways with colorful posters and banners, each representing different cultures and stories. Jamal could hardly contain his enthusiasm as he walked through the bustling halls. Today was not just about sharing his story, but celebrating the diverse backgrounds of all his classmates. As he entered the gym, the atmosphere was electric. Parents, teachers, and students gathered, eager to see the presentations. Jamal's heart raced as he spotted his friends setting up their displays. Each group had worked hard, and it showed in their unique presentations. Jamal and his group had chosen to create a visual display that showcased their cultural backgrounds. They had posters with pictures of their families, flags from their countries, and even a table with traditional snacks. They wanted to share not just their stories, but a taste of their cultures. "Jamal, over here." Lissa waved him over as they finished setting up their display. The table was adorned with homemade treats from each of their families. Jamal could already smell his mom's famous sweet potato pie. He felt proud to share a piece of his culture with everyone. As they waited for the showcase to begin, Jamal glanced around at the other displays. A group was showcasing their Filipino traditions, complete with traditional clothing and dance. Another group had a beautiful display about African customs, featuring vibrant fabrics and instruments. Jamal felt a swell of pride for his classmates. They were all coming together to celebrate their differences. Finally, Ms. Thompson stepped onto the stage and clapped her hands to get everyone's attention. "Welcome, everyone, to our cultural showcase. Today, we will hear from our wonderful students about their backgrounds and stories. Let's begin." The first group took the stage, and Jamal's heart raced with excitement. One by one, each group shared their presentations, sharing their histories, customs, and values. Some students sang, others danced, and many shared touching stories about their families and how their backgrounds shaped who they were. When it was Jamal's group's turn, he took a deep breath and stood at the front with Lisa, Ethan, and Sophia. The room was filled with friendly faces, eager to listen. Jamal could feel the support from his classmates and their families, and it gave him confidence. "Hello, everyone. We are excited to share our stories with you," Jamal began, looking out at the audience. "Our group is made up of friends from different cultures. We believe that our stories can help us understand each other better." As he spoke, Jamal shared the significance of his family's journey. He talked about how his grandparents moved to America for a better life and how their struggles shaped his family. Lisa shared her family's traditions of making pasta and celebrating Italian holidays. Ethan talked about his family's love for nature and outdoor adventures, while Sophia introduced her culture's vibrant festivals and delicious food. Jamal noticed how engaged the audience was. Parents nodded, teachers smiled, and other students listened intently. He felt a sense of accomplishment as he saw his classmates sharing their own stories. Together, we can celebrate our differences and create a community where everyone feels valued, Jamal concluded, his heart swelling with pride. After their presentation, the audience erupted in applause. Jamal and his friends beamed with joy. They had successfully shared their stories, and the support from their classmates made it even more special. As the showcase continued, Jamal moved around to visit the other displays. He tasted different foods, admired creative artwork, and learned fascinating facts about cultures he had never known. Each story was unique, and the more he learned, the more he appreciated the diversity around him. Then, Jamal noticed a familiar face in the crowd. It was Miss Thompson, smiling proudly as she watched her students engage with one another. She approached Jamal, her eyes shining with pride. "You did an amazing job, Jamal. Your courage and leadership made this showcase a success." "Thank you, Miss Thompson. I couldn't have done it without my friends," Jamal replied, his heart swelling with gratitude. As the showcase came to an end, Jamal felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. They had all come together to share their stories, and in doing so, they had built a stronger, more inclusive community. When the event concluded, parents praised the students for their hard work. Jamal overheard one mother telling her son, "I didn't know about your classmates' culture. We should learn more about it." Jamal smiled, knowing that their efforts had sparked curiosity and understanding. The showcase had opened doors for conversations and connections that would last beyond the school year. As Jamal walked home, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had not only shared his story, but had also helped create a space where others could share theirs. He realized the power of storytelling and how it could bridge gaps and build understanding. Later that evening, as Jamal sat with his family at dinner, he shared the highlights of the day. "Mom, everyone loved the sweet potato pie. They were really interested in our family story." His mom smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "That's wonderful to hear, Jamal. You've shown them the importance of sharing and learning from one another." As he finished his dinner, Jamal reflected on the day. He felt grateful for his classmates and the connections they had formed. He knew that this was just the beginning of a journey toward understanding and acceptance. With a smile on his face, Jamal went to bed, dreaming of the possibilities that lay ahead. He had learned that by sharing their stories, they could change hearts and minds, creating a future filled with compassion and respect. The unexpected encounter. A few days after the showcase, life returned to normal for Jamal. He continued to enjoy his classes, and the excitement from the showcase lingered in the air. The bond he formed with his classmates deepened as they shared more about their cultures and backgrounds. However, the events of that day had sparked something within him, a desire to continue spreading awareness about acceptance and understanding. One sunny afternoon, as Jamal walked home from school, he noticed a commotion near the park. Curious, he hurried over to see what was happening. A crowd had gathered, and Jamal could hear raised voices. He pushed his way through the crowd, his heart racing with anticipation. When he reached the front, he saw a small group of students surrounding a boy who looked upset. It was Ethan, one of his friends from the showcase. Ethan was standing near a boy from another school who seemed to be bullying him. The other students were whispering, some taking videos on their phones, but nobody stepped in to help. Jamal felt a surge of anger and concern. He remembered how important it was to stand up for one another, especially after the successful showcase. He pushed through the crowd, determination in his eyes. "Hey, what's going on here?" he called out, his voice steady and firm. The bullying boy smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. "Just having some fun with this loser," he replied, pointing at Ethan. Jamal stepped closer, ready to defend his friend. "This isn't funny. Leave him alone," he shouted. The crowd fell silent, surprised by Jamal's boldness. Jamal's heart raced, but he stood tall, feeling the weight of his responsibility. Ethan looked relieved, his expression changing from fear to gratitude. "Thanks, Jamal," he whispered, his voice shaky. The other students began to murmur, clearly torn between wanting to support Jamal and not wanting to be involved. The bully scoffed, clearly not intimidated. "What are you going to do about it? You think you're some kind of hero." He stepped closer, trying to provoke Jamal. But Jamal wasn't backing down. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I just think everyone deserves respect," he replied, keeping his voice steady. The crowd began to shift, more students moving closer to show their support for Jamal and Ethan. Just then, Lisa, another friend from the showcase, arrived on the scene. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes wide with concern. She quickly assessed the situation and joined Jamal's side. "You can't treat people this way," she said firmly, crossing her arms. Seeing Jamal and Lisa standing up for Ethan seemed to change the atmosphere. Other students began to join in, calling for the bully to leave Ethan alone. The crowd began to rally together, and the bully's confidence started to wane. "Fine. Whatever," the bully grumbled, stepping back as he realized he was outnumbered. He shot one last glare at Ethan before turning to walk away. The crowd began to cheer, their voices filled with support. Ethan let out a sigh of relief. "Thank you, guys. I didn't know what to do," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "We've got your back, always," Jamal assured him, feeling proud of their group's response. He looked around at the other students, feeling a sense of unity and strength. This wasn't just about standing up against a bully. It was about creating a community that cared for one another. As the crowd dispersed, Jamal, Lisa, and Ethan walked together, discussing what had just happened. "I can't believe you stood up to him like that," Ethan said, admiration shining in his eyes. "That was really brave." Jamal shrugged but felt a warm glow inside. "We have to look out for each other. It's what we learned from the showcase." Lisa nodded in agreement, her face lighting up with enthusiasm. "I think we should organize something," Lisa suggested. "Maybe a club that promotes kindness and respect in our school. We could plan events, help others, and make sure everyone feels included." Jamal's heart raced at the idea. "That's a great idea. We could call it the Unity Club, or something like that," he said, his excitement building. Ethan chimed in, "I want to help. We can invite other students to join and share their ideas too." The three friends spent the rest of the afternoon brainstorming ideas for the club. They talked about planning events like cultural days, workshops on empathy, and community service projects. They wanted to create a safe space for all students where everyone could share their stories and feel valued. As they made their plans, Jamal felt a sense of purpose growing within him. This was more than just about standing up against bullying. It was about building a community of support and understanding. The success of the showcase had inspired them to take action, and now they were ready to make a difference. When Jamal got home that evening, he shared the news with his family. His mom listened intently, her face beaming with pride. "I'm so proud of you, Jamal. It's wonderful to see you taking initiative and standing up for what's right." Jamal smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "We want to create a club that helps everyone feel included," he explained, his passion evident in his voice. His mom hugged him tightly. "You have a big heart, and I know you'll make a positive impact on your school." As Jamal went to bed that night, he reflected on the day's events. He felt empowered, knowing that he and his friends could create change in their school. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face any challenges that came their way. Together, they would work to build a more inclusive and supportive community, one story at a time. The power of unity. The next week at school was buzzing with excitement. Word had spread about the formation of the Unity Club, and students were curious to learn more. Jamal, Lisa, and Ethan had put up colorful posters around the school, inviting everyone to their first meeting. They were eager to bring students together to discuss their ideas for fostering kindness and acceptance. On the day of the first meeting, Jamal arrived early, his heart pounding with anticipation. He hoped students would show up and be as enthusiastic as they were. The meeting was scheduled for the school library, a cozy space filled with books and sunlight streaming through the windows. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, Jamal set up chairs in a circle and arranged a few snacks on a table. Lisa arrived shortly after, carrying a stack of papers filled with ideas they had brainstormed. "I can't believe this is really happening," she said, her excitement infectious. "I know. I hope we get a good turnout," Jamal replied, glancing at the door nervously. Ethan joined them soon after, bringing along a few more snacks. "I invited a couple of my friends. They're interested in joining too," he said, grinning. As the minutes passed, More students trickled into the library. Some were familiar faces, while others were new. Jamal's heart soared as he realized that people were genuinely interested in being part of something positive. Once everyone settled, Jamal stood up to welcome the group. "Thank you all for coming to our first Unity Club meeting. We're excited to create a space where everyone feels accepted and valued. Our goal is to promote kindness and understanding in our school." The students nodded, some clapping their hands in encouragement. Jamal felt a rush of confidence as he continued. "We want to hear your ideas. Let's work together to plan activities and events that bring us all closer." Lisa chimed in. "We could start with a kindness week, where we do something nice for someone every day. It could be small things like complimenting someone or helping with homework." Ethan added, "And we can have a cultural exchange day where students share about their backgrounds. It'll be a great way to learn from each other." The room buzzed with energy as students began to share their ideas. Some suggested organizing charity drives, while others wanted to set up peer mentorship programs. Everyone seemed eager to contribute, and Jamal felt proud of what they had started. As the meeting continued, Jamal noticed a girl sitting quietly in the corner, looking unsure. He recognized her as Maya, a new student who had recently transferred from another school. Jamal remembered how hard it was to be the new kid, and he wanted to make sure she felt included. "Maya," Jamal said, turning his attention to her, "we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think would make our school more welcoming?" Maya looked surprised but smiled shyly. I think maybe we could have a buddy system for new students. It would help them feel less alone," she suggested softly. "Great idea," Lisa exclaimed. "We can pair new students with someone who can show them around and help them feel comfortable." Jamal could see Maya's confidence growing as she spoke. "I'd like to help with that," she said, her voice stronger now. "I remember how lost I felt when I first came here." As the meeting came to a close, Jamal felt a sense of unity among the students. They had turned their ideas into actionable plans, and everyone seemed excited to contribute. "Thank you all for coming," Jamal said, beaming. "Let's keep this momentum going. We'll meet again next week to finalize our plans for Kindness Week." As the students filed out of the library, Jamal felt a wave of happiness wash over him. He knew that the Unity Club was just the beginning. Together, they were creating a supportive community that valued everyone's voice and story. Over the following weeks, the Unity Club blossomed. They successfully launched Kindness Week, during which students participated in various activities that promoted positivity and acceptance. Each day was filled with acts of kindness, and the energy in the school transformed. On the last day of Kindness Week, Jamal stood in front of the student body during the morning announcements. "Thank you all for participating in Kindness Week. Your efforts have shown how powerful unity can be. Together, we can create a culture of respect and understanding in our school." The students erupted into applause, their excitement palpable. Jamal felt a sense of accomplishment swell within him. He remembered the struggles that had once weighed him down, and now he was part of something that made a difference. As he left the auditorium, Jamal was approached by several classmates who expressed their gratitude for the Unity Club. "This has changed our school for the better," one student said. "I feel like I can be myself now." Jamal smiled, realizing that their efforts were paying off. The bond he had with his friends, and the friendships blossoming among other students, were proof that unity was powerful. They had created a ripple effect that would continue to inspire kindness and acceptance long after Kindness Week was over. Later that evening, as Jamal reflected on the journey, he felt grateful for the lessons he had learned. Standing up for what was right had brought him closer to his friends and had opened doors for others to share their stories. The Unity Club had become a symbol of hope and strength in their school. With a heart full of dreams and aspirations, Jamal knew that their work was far from over. Together, they would continue to foster a community of love, respect, and understanding. It was a mission worth fighting for, and he was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead.